is Aeternum Radio, broadcasting from the peaks of Shattered Mountain to the New World.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Aeternum Radio. You're listening to episode 11, recorded here with your host, Slacker, and my two co-hosts, Big Papa.
Howdy.
And Ruko.
Hey everyone.
You can listen to this podcast unedited by watching us on Twitch at The Slacker Project or by joining us on Discord. We host these live there. Aeternum Radio is available wherever podcasts can be heard, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Today, we've got a lot to talk about. We've got some news that is actually good news. We got some news that proves me wrong in the past few episodes that we've been recording.
I think it proves us all wrong.
Yeah. Today's feature review, we're going to be revisiting builds. We've all redone our builds after our beta, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And then finally, our big opinion is going to be talking about a heated topic in the community about the Stagger system that was removed in combat. We're going to talk about a little bit about Stagger and Stunlocking, especially as it pertains to PvP. So let's get started with the news. New World news. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Yesterday, or was it 2 days ago? Well, guess it doesn't matter when you're listening to this podcast, but they recently announced that New World will have another open public beta. I'm sorry, this is not another open public beta. This is the first public beta. This is public. So you do not have to have pre-ordered the game in order to play in this beta. It's open to the public. It'll run from September 9th to September 12th. It's going to be just like it was with the previous betas. You'll start at level 0 or level 1 and off you go. So I'm a little bit bummed about that. I was really hoping for some endgame content that we could practice, but they have disclosed that they will not be testing any other forms other than what they needed to do before. They talked about what they really needed to learn was a lot of the server infrastructure stuff, that the beta had really opened up their eyes to a lot of things that were unstable, and they've made massive improvements on that. And now they're using this beta to confirm that those improvements can handle the stress test.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it sounds fun, but 3 days, I mean, how much are you really going to be able to accomplish in 3 days, at least from a player standpoint? I'm guessing most people who are going to be attracted to this are going to be people who are on the fence about it or wanted to try it out without having to pre-order or whatever. Yeah. Whereas, I'll go out and I'm going to play it and I'm going to just have some fun. But it's kind of... I kind of will have this thought in the back of my head. I know that everything I do is not going to matter in 4 days, right? So what's kind of even the point? It's fun to play, so I'm going to go out and play it for a few days without really any expectations. But
it's obvious that this is just going to be a stress test. I mean, otherwise they would have given more time, and they don't, they're not looking to test specific content necessarily. Like Slacker said, I was hoping...
Right, they're testing the server.
Right, they're testing the servers, they're testing, the connections, they're testing all that. So if I do it, I've been busy, but if I do it for these couple days, it'll just be to try out some new weapons, because I only played 2 weapons during the closed beta.
If we want to give Amazon a run for the money, we should organize a massive outdoor PvP tournament in a single zone. And that will stress test the servers. So maybe now, that could be fun.
If you get in there and you read the fine print, you'll also see that there will also be technical tests, but the only people who are going to be invited to these little closed technical tests will be those who were participated in the alpha. So if I hear anything as a previous alpha player, I'll let you guys know. But I saw them do things like this before in the alpha, so I'm curious to see what they have. Now, the alpha players who will be in these technical tests will not be allowed to stream their content. They'll be under the NDA, but the open beta is going to be free in a way. So you'll see Twitch explode with New World players. There was also, I did a little digging and I found a really nice little Q&A, some pretty interesting questions that were answered by a developer called Winsword on the Steam forums. And I think I found this on, I guess I didn't really deep dive. I'm pretty sure I found it on Reddit, but I followed the trail and went back. And Winsword posts a lot of really great stuff. He's pretty active in that, in the forums on the Steam forums. And so there's a couple of Q&As I just kind of want to rattle off here so that everybody's aware of them. He says, question, what did you guys learn from the closed beta and what kind of changes can we expect? What was learned? He said, beta produced a lot of learnings about our server and server infrastructure, things that the volume of testers helped surface to us to get addressed. We are having an open beta prior to launch to test the solutions to these issues. We discussed that. Next question. Will there be specific servers for specific languages due to how many EU languages there are? Which is a good question. There is actually a pretty large EU community that's playing New World. And they respond with, we are working on language suggested servers and will announce details prior to open beta. So if you are wanting to play New World in a different language, I think that's going to be a real option pretty soon. And I don't think I've seen that in any other Western-based RPG. So good on New World. I think that's, kudos are due.
No, not language specific, but they do have region specific servers, especially with like World of Warcraft has Latin servers that tend to be more populated with a lot of Spanish speakers, Portuguese speakers.
Well, those are hard. So, even in that case, though, I don't care where I'm playing with other English-speaking players. I just want to play with English-speaking players.
Sure.
And I'm sure someone who speaks Portuguese is thinking the same thing.
Yeah, and
I guess server location also matters, though.
Server location does matter. I mean, people want to play with the lower ping, which incentivizes players, if they set up servers somewhere like in Brazil or Mexico or something like that, people who speak Spanish or Portuguese are more likely to play on those servers, even if they're not dedicated Spanish or Portuguese servers specifically. So,
right.
Yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't just do regions. I mean, that's my opinion.
The point is like throughout Europe, you've got English, French, German.
Right,
Spanish.
Specifically the EU servers is what they're talking.
Specifically the EU. But I could definitely see Latin American servers coming up, and with Spanish and Portuguese down in the southern hemisphere. So
and like one French country.
Yeah.
French.
Who knows? Maybe you can do French Canada.
That's
server,
true. Last question on this Q&A was, any other considerations into being able to get a horse? I love animals. And I mean, the initial response that they had gotten was, can't talk about that, but you can get a house. And there's that was a pretty good question dodging there. But Winsword comes back and says, mounts is a frequently requested feature that would have a huge impact on the design of the game. We have not announced whether mounts will be added or not, so I do not have any updates to share. And I think that this is, it's obviously not a clear-cut answer whether that's going to be yes or no. And I know that the community is fairly divided on this point. Some people really are fighting for it. The majority of us here agree that we don't want mounts. We don't think it's necessary for the game. I mean, even if they opened up another half of the continent and we got to explore double the amount of space, I still don't think a mount is necessary because you're still going to have additional travel points. And exactly, right.
No.
And that would be when you introduce mounts into a game, it's not just about fast transportation. It's about catching people in a PvP battle. It's about running someone down. There's so many more considerations other than just getting from A to B. And we've talked about some of those solutions.
Well,
on this
what's
podcast.
interesting is I don't know if they have an official announcement, but right now, at least in the announcements I've seen, they are not saying no, though. They're not being hard about their response.
That is true. That's true.
They are leaving it open. So just something to point out there.
So that was a Q&A. I'll keep you guys posted if I see anything else that was kind of note, but I thought that it was interesting that we did get someone who finally, from the developer side, addressed those mounts. Winsword, if you're listening, gosh, we'd love to have you on the show and chat with you. Release date persists as September 28th. That's still the go-to. But amidst all these announcements, we were privileged to hear from Scott Lane, who's the director of, what is he, the game director for New World. And he had some pretty interesting things to say when he was getting interviewed on the Gamescom 2021 that happened a few days ago. Well, let me grab the exact date that happened so I'm not lying. On August 25th. This is what Scott Lane says when he's being interviewed. And they talk a little bit about how the betas, they're going to open another beta, that the launch date is still going to be September 28th. But he's then asked, what can we expect after New World is launched? And this is the first time we've gotten a teaser for the content that's going to come after the launch date. At least the first teaser that I'm aware of. They've done a really good job of like hiding all these hints and clues as to the potential of the story and later content. Yes, but when asked what's coming next, this was his response.
Well, we are completely committed to making Aeternum a living, breathing world that players will come back to again and again for years to come. So for us, launch is really the beginning. It's day one. We're going to continue to add features well beyond launch, and we're going to continue engaging with the players to help drive our goals and where we take the game. I can't get specific on what we're talking about, but I can give you some hints. Players have already been asking for more supernatural elements and more weapons. So we got a pretty cool way to combine those into a deliverable that they'll see shortly after launch. And then players have been asking for more group content and expeditions. So we're working toward that as well. And then, you know, with the holidays right around the corner, I'm pretty excited to see what that might look like on Aeternum.
Okay, yeah.
I was just going to say, it appears that Thanos is going to appear in New World. Is that...
Why? Because of the
What?
giant gauntlet from
because
the
of the
video, yeah.
gauntlets. Oh, yeah, I thought I saw
Okay.
the gauntlet in there.
So those of you who are listening and not watching, so when he mentions that they're going to be adding new weapons, we get 2 screenshots of a new weapon, and it's a gauntlet. And I actually really am enjoying this gauntlet theme. I actually kind of like a gauntlet as a magical item more than I like a staff. But there's 2 panels. Both of them have kind of different recoloring structuring of the same general idea. And one of them is a hand. The gauntlet is sort of holding a ring in an open, like a ring/disc, about the size of your cereal bowl. If you were to grab the top of your cereal bowl and then cut off the bottom of the bowl and hold it out, that's kind of what this looks like. But it looks almost Druidic, right? Like it looks like it's got bones and talons, and there's like fur strapped on the back. One of them even has like a fox head strapped on the back. These are obviously concept arts, but they look awesome. And then the next screenshot shows the gauntlets holding a ring of similar size, but now they're holding the ring instead of like palming it. And you see a couple of different versions of it. One of it looks very paladin-esque. Another looks very ethereal. And there's 4 different like kind of recolorings and touch-ups of it. So new weapon. He talked about new mechanics. What else did he say there?
Supernatural, new expeditions,
new
group
expeditions,
content.
and then he
Yeah.
talks about the holidays, which makes me think that they're going to be trying to release this new gauntlet, then new expeditions, and then have the holidays happen. That's what it sounded like to me.
I don't know if he meant holiday as an in-game holiday or if like he meant like release time around the holiday. But maybe I'm not. I guess I'm not.
I
too
think they
sure,
might do
so.
like a Christmassy, holiday themed, like in the different
I
various
think it'd be a lot of-
towns.
that'd be really
that might
cool,
look really.
yeah.
It'd be kind of cool if you got specific decorations in your home for like you could get a Christmas tree or whatever. I would just love it if they kept it in the time period that they belong. How cool would it be to have like 17th century Christmas decorations?
Yeah, you light some candles on your tree, you know, and that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And
that'd be
Father
pretty cool.
Christmas can appear.
That's right.
No, okay, I got a theory. So that first gauntlet looks bestial, you know, and it'd be cool if it was like a Beastmaster type magic or something, or you know, I don't know how that would work in New World, but that's just giving off those vibes for sure because it's got fur on it and
Yes,
and
yeah, that'd be
bones,
awesome.
you know.
But I
Looks
think
pretty
these are the
good.
same gauntlet. I think this is
I-
like
I do,
different,
yeah.
Like
between,
skins
tier
of the same.
3 and
Well,
4.
so the
Yeah.
2 images though show somewhat different gauntlets though. Like that's what I thought of each
They
gauntlet
do.
within the image, but then there's 2 images, and so I don't know if they're different gauntlets or if it's the same. But that it could be skins of the same, especially since they both have rings. Like they're holding this ring in it.
Unless those rings are actually placeholders for something else.
It's possible, but the concept art seems pretty detailed.
Because the way those
Or a
hands are gripping
placeholder.
it, yeah, that's true.
Sure.
I'm wondering if they've moved towards the one where the hand is gripping the ring instead of palming the ring. If they've once they've moved to a game concept, they've went to gripping instead of palming.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, all we know, well, he hints that it's going to be supernatural in some way, right?
Yeah.
Something related to the supernatural properties of Aeternum.
And that's
So-
good. That's good because
Yeah.
there should be some more supernatural weapons.
And I think
Yeah, I
the
agree.
magic side of the game needed a little bit more love. We got Ice
Yeah.
Gauntlet, Fire Staff, and Life Staff.
Well, hopefully it's something, that offers another healing option, even
Yeah.
if it's just one of the trees.
I was just going to say that. I agree. Yeah.
I would even contest it would be because I think the Life Staff is still pretty solid, even though it is the only option. But if you had something that paired really well with the Life Staff, so you could choose, I'm going Life Staff, but instead of going Fire Staff with it, I'm going to go with this gauntlet.
Yeah, you absolutely could.
Have it scale off
Or
of
even
focus.
just do double gauntlet build, okay? Just do ice gauntlet, whatever
Duh.
this gauntlet is, right?
And please, you put them each on a different hand.
Different. Oh, dude, I would
Oh,
kill
man.
for dual wielding in this game. All right, dual wielding hatchets would be absolutely incredible. But,
That would-
When you are, you know what I'm going to check when we get to the beta. I did not play Ice Gauntlet, but I'm curious. When you swapped to the Ice Gauntlet, do you put on the gauntlet, or are you always holding the gauntlet?
I guess I wasn't paying enough attention to the
That's a good
animation,
question. I don't
but
remember either.
We can find out.
I don't think any of us
September 9th,
played
I
a
guess.
gauntlet base. Yes, we can.
I played a little bit, but I wasn't. I was mostly focused on the attack animations, not necessarily what my character was doing.
Right.
So,
Well, the intelligence has the Fire Staff and the Ice Gauntlet bonusing off of it. So I'd love to see this be something that focus bonuses off of.
yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay, I have one more small bit of news here. And this really isn't news because this is old news, but it hit me like a ton of bricks when I was thinking about how freaking awesome this is going to be. A couple of months ago, if you haven't heard of this, Steam has they're going to be releasing a console like a Switch. It's called a Steam Deck. And this is it's like a Switch that you can carry your entire PC library on it. You're going to be able to play New World anywhere. That's going to be so much freaking fun to grab my Steam Deck, travel to you guys over at the West Coast, and have a LAN party where you guys can be on your PCs or on your two-piece projector system, and I can bring my Steam Deck and we can play in the same room again.
Yeah. It would be
so
fun.
pumped.
Yeah.
To be fair,
that's gonna be
people
cool.
are doing that with gaming laptops already. But the Steam Deck will definitely help a lot more with it for sure.
Well, now I feel like an idiot. That's a really good point. I travel a lot for work, so I typically have
Well,
my
is the
work
Steam Deck
laptop
gonna
with
have,
me, which
like,
I
some
can't
sort
put
of-
any games on.
Well, yeah. Never mind. No, I think the Steam Deck's a good idea still. I think that's a great idea for Steam to release
Yeah,
that. But
it is.
Yeah. Well,
No, it's
then
definitely
it's a
a lot
great solution
easier.
for me and very few other people like me that travel for work and have to carry around a work laptop. I don't want to carry around two laptops. That's dumb.
Well, it'll be cheaper.
I carry around
than
a laptop
gaming
and a-
laptop anyway, right?
Yes, it
So-
will. Yes,
Yeah.
it
and
will.
more
So-
portable. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of upsides to it.
Okay, that was a terrible bit of news. I apologize.
no, I think it was good to mention it because the Steam Deck's is looking really good.
Let's go.
Quality content on Aeternum Radio. That's what you get. You're 21 minutes in, so this is how we get you. All right. So let's talk about our feature review. We're talking Builds 2.0. And we are defining the new meta. Isn't that right, Ruko?
I certainly hope not, but we'll see. I saw today out on New World Fans they have a little section called Meta Builds and it says coming soon, so that'll be fun to look out for.
They literally
once the game launches.
They released that after our last episode, after they heard you complain about metas. They
Probably, yeah.
decided
They're
And they're like,
probably
yeah, they
like,
hate
yeah,
us.
we're gonna put the meta section so that everyone can go tell Ruka what he has to play in a video game. So.
All right, so here's the big scoop for today. We're gonna talk about our various builds. Each of us have brought a different build to the table, and they may be the same build that we had last time, or they may be changed. I think all of us have gone with something a little bit different. And we're gonna answer a few questions. 1, what's your new build? 2, why? Why did you make these decisions? And 3, and finally, we'll talk about this after we've all presented our builds. What do we still need to test before the launch during the open beta? Now that we're giving these few extra days, what do you feel still needs to be tested before you're like, this is 100% my build? So who wants to go first?
I guess I can go first. So
Do we want to do reverse order from last time? Because I don't mind going first. If you
I have no idea
It
what the
doesn't
reverse
matter.
order was from last time.
Okay, go ahead, Ruka, because I gotta. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So my new build is pretty different from the one I did last time. Last time I did the great axe and the hatchet, and I built that build around just kind of like 1v1 combat, chasing people down, keeping them in range, finishing them off quickly, type deal. This one is much more about CC and AoE, and I've designed it more for doing like wars or getting on points and getting other people off of points. So this build uses the Warhammer as the primary, and I go pretty deep into the Crowd Crusher tree.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, so uh, a lot of CC going into
You
this
took
build.
all but 2 different abilities in the Crowd Crusher.
Correct. Yeah, the two I didn't choose. One was the blocking melee attacks. I haven't found blocking melee attacks with a weapon super effective or super helpful. Maybe I'm wrong about that, probably. But right now I didn't take that first one in the Crowd Crusher tree. The other one I didn't take was Resurgence. Mostly because I'm not super worried about getting my own debuffs off. This one is going to be more about applying debuffs onto other people and just getting them off the point, right? So the Crowd Crusher has that clear out ability where you swing and you knock people away. You've got the Shockwave, so after you knock them away and knock them down, you can follow it up with a big stun. And while they're stunned, you can just lay out the Path of Destiny ability, which will also stagger them if they are even out of the stun yet, just to do some extra damage. Now, I've paired this build with the Fire Staff, okay, and specifically the Pyromancer
Oh, that's
tree.
interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of unique. So I am planning, at least with this build, that it would scale off of intelligence, and I would put an intellect, like a gem to make the Warhammer scale off of intelligence in there. But going into the Pyromancer tree, Burnout is really how I'm going to get into the fight, right? Because the Warhammer is kind of slow. It's got a couple of little haste abilities, but most of them are just going to kind of be used to do some follow-up attacks. They're not really
And what does Burnout do
designed
for
to get
you?
in. So Burnout charges in almost like the Great Axe, but it does it with fire, right? Does it with the Fire Staff, right? And then you can go in and you can get Incinerate, you can get some Flamethrower and Fire stacks, right? So, and while they're burning, you can switch over back to the Warhammer to get some CC on them. I guess I more imagine using Burnout, get into the fight, get some CC out with the Warhammer, and then follow it up with some burning damage, just to try and just to do some damage, right?
Well,
There's
and that'll
a few
pair
CC
really well
abilities.
with your Reheat. So Reheat, the keystone ability here, is after 6 seconds without activating a Fire Staff ability, your mana regen is increased by 400%. You engage with this, and then you automatically swap off. When you get back to it, that is going to be you'll have full mana, no problem.
Yeah, swapping off with it. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll have full mana pretty much all the time, or whenever I switch to the Fire Staff, right? I can burn out and then incinerate and then apply some stacks of Flamethrower real quick before going to the Warhammer, and then just dealing out some punishment to get them off the point, or whatever. Now, I mean, this is really more about setting up, getting people off the point. This is not gonna be the highest damage build. The Warhammer is really slow. And I didn't fill out the gear section, but I would imagine I'm going to go into the heavy equipment load just for the 20% extra crowd control duration that you get once you hit that mark. I know people hate that tier of gear because they start fat rolling and things like that, right? There's just for this really slow roll. But I think the extra 20% CC with this build would be good. So I think it has a specific purpose in like a war. I don't think this is going to be good on like one-on-one PvP. It's all of the casts or all the abilities are slow to come out in general, and so it's going to be better in a group setting where maybe there's more going on, there's more distractions, people aren't paying as much attention to your attacks and aren't dodging out of the way as much. And again, getting them off the point, this is going to be really great. There's 2 different abilities that knock people away, with some additional follow-up, crowd control, things you can do with slows and staggers, and then just burning them down with the fire staff for some extra damage. So
Yeah, so I'm curious, do you think you will like I said, I think this is a great build for any of those group combat fights, which is going to be quite a few. In fact, even when we were just playing on an off day, we weren't even doing a war or anything, we still had group combat PvP happening pretty frequently. So even in those situations, this would be really nice. I'm curious, would you carry another weapon with you so that you can be more of a threat in a 1v1 situation, or would you commit hardcore to this?
Well, again, I think I would probably only pull this out for like a war. Like I know I'm going into a war, and I know
okay.
I'm going into an outpost rush, right? I don't know that this would be great out in the open world. You can kind of use you could use the fire staff to poke them down maybe a little bit range and then try to go in and finish them off. I did take at least one of the I think it's the light attacks will cause burning, so I could poke them down a little bit at a range and then decide to go in. Or if somebody's coming at me, then honestly that gives me a big advantage. If somebody is coming or trying to charge in towards me, right? I have a lot of abilities to keep them at bay or keep them CC'd if they do get in close, right?
Oh, dude, you know where this would be just fantastic?
Where?
And so you say, hey, it's probably not that good in an open world environment. We should take you with that build. So down in First Light, there's a huge bridge that connects one island to the other, and it's fairly narrow. Imagine using this build to just lock down that bridge.
The bridge?
Yeah.
Yes, people are running back and forth over that thing all the time.
You
They'd
absolutely
have
could
nowhere
do
to
that.
run from you.
No, they absolutely would not. And being able to knock them around, that's going to be pretty scary, I guess, if they try and come across the ridge.
Oh,
so
that'd be awesome.
yeah, it'll be fun. We'll definitely have to try that out. So
That area even had a few little land bridges that would be good, but I'm pretty sure that bridge was the most, because a main quest passed through there, so you get a lot of pretty frequent visitors.
It's a big hub. A lot of people coming in and out. So
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I'll go next. So my build, I'm calling the Bat build, and I actually need a little bit of help on this because I'm not totally sold on it. And I think my issue is that now that I've come back to the build. Like before we had played, and even I had done the alpha, but before we had played the closed beta, I was being very meticulous about being like, okay, this ability is cool, but doesn't matter. Doesn't have great synergy with what I'm going after. This time, there were a few things I just couldn't let go. So I picked up and started flipping around with the spear during the closed beta, and I couldn't stop playing with it. I found the spear, what to me was a complete underdog. Like I wanted to play the hatchet. I wanted to play a bow and a musket. And really the question for me was like, definitely hatchet, maybe a musket, maybe a bow. And it ended up being definitely a spear and maybe a bow. I haven't really decided on my second ability, because the spear has these 2 trees. You have Zoner and Impaler. And the Impaler tree has 3 different abilities. One of them does 3 quick jabs. It's called Perforate, and it's pointed. So the catch with the spear is that you've really got to be facing your opponent because it's thrusting damage. It's coming right at them, right? There's no arcs. There generally is no arcs or no swings in your basic and heavy attacks. So you kind of got to be on the nose. And Perforate requires you to be on the nose. And if you get 3 quick hits in a row with its add-ons like Rupturing Spikes and Impactful Strikes, what it is, which is like the second tier down, it says target is staggered if you successfully land all 3 hits. I really like that ability. I also really like Skewer, which is where you rush forward and you stab things. But when I got into PvP combat, I was really having a hard time landing my skewers. And then I had another ability that I really loved called Vault Kick, where you kind of pole vault off the spear and smack somebody or something. And the animation looks awesome. And it feels really good to use this ability. Okay, that being said, I've decided not to do Vault Kick and not to do Skewer, because the abilities in the other tree were just, okay, so there's 2 that I just had to pick up. One was sweep. You sweep the target's leg, dealing 75% weapon damage and knocking them down. The sweep's arc is so wide, I almost never miss with it. I don't think I did ever miss with it because the arc was just so great. So as soon as you got close enough and I saw you were doing something I didn't want you to do, sweep and I knock you on your feet. Then I could follow that up with either a skewer or a perforate and get my hits on you that I needed to get to continue the fight in melee combat. And that paired really, really well together. Now, the last ability that I decided, okay, I gotta have something else, was that I picked, which I will probably change eventually, but for now, has to be Javelin. So you take your spear and you hurl it. The best freaking part about this ability is its second tier, called Forceful Impact, where targets are knocked down on a hit. So if they're running at me, they're running away from me, if I land this Javelin hit, which I started doing more frequently because I was using the bow, so I was getting very used to the arc and leading my targets. Oh, it was so satisfying to just lay someone out from a distance. Getting a hit with that felt so good. And if you headshot them, you reduce the cooldown by 50%. It was awesome. So that's what I've decided with weapon number 1. It's got to be this spear build. And the idea here is to be able to provide good crowd control and follow that up with damage. So either you're engaging me or I'm engaging you. I'm using my javelin. I probably miss because I suck. But let's say I actually hit you. I knock you on your feet. That's great. I can start the engagement. If not, you could get close to me. I can sweep and I can get a very successful perforate off and get a few light hits off before I back off a little bit more and try and hit you again with another sweep and javelin. So it's sort of this sort of like, let me CC you, get my hits in because it's kind of hard to hit my hits because I don't have an arc. I have a very pointed hit and then back off again. So that was weapon number 1. It's a very long-winded way to say that was weapon number 1. Weapon number 2, I'm still leaning towards bow. Not because bow is so great, but because having a ranged option I felt was really good. And maybe I stick with bow, maybe I go to musket, and like Big Papa, you'll be running a musket, and I know you plan on going down the engineering tree, so if I end up going musket, I could literally feed you my resources to help bonus off of this. So that's a plus. I wouldn't have to be like heavily invested in engineering to make that go off.
Yeah.
But the bow was working really well. I enjoy the hunter tree of the bow and not the skirmisher, which I see done a lot, where you're focusing on debuffs and the poisons and stuff like that, but instead doing the penetrating shot and the rapid shot to be up in the battlements and taking their shots. So I don't know. The bow was used to kind of do some zoning and deal some damage, but I don't know if it's the perfect pair for the spear. And I don't know if what I've picked for the spear makes it a perfect companion for it. And I think I'm okay with that. Like I said before, I'm not a min-maxer. I'm okay if I take an ability that's not the perfect, most best ability because I like the rotation better or because I enjoy an animation better. I'm okay with that. But I'm just... I stewed over this for way too long. Is there a better weapon for spear?
I don't know. See, and it's funny you mentioned that because I saw a post on Reddit earlier this week. Someone had kind of taken a survey and posted the results of the survey of different weapon combinations people were using. And I'm pretty sure spear and bow was the most popular combination.
No, it wasn't. Was it really?
All weapons. Yeah, I'll double check on that real quick.
Yeah,
but
I saw more spears than any other weapon in New World. It was, if anything, it was the overdog, not the underdog. Slacker.
Yeah, and it was,
it was the underdog for me.
That's my second dad joke for the podcast right there.
Oh, you're totally right. Yeah, they listed that spear and bow was far and above the most popular build.
Yeah, so I don't think there's any problem with pairing the spear with the bow. I don't know what trees they're using specifically, but this.
Well, I can tell you what trees they're probably using. If you pair these two weapons together, and you're not an idiot like me, you can get a lot of debuffs and dots going on your opponents and stack them really well. So if you follow up, I bet you, I bet my bottom dollar that the majority of those builds are focused on skirmisher for the bow, which focuses on the evading shot, which keeps you at a distance, a rain of arrows, and the poison shot, which lands a cloud of poisons. And there's a lot of things in here that bonus your debuffs, and the impaler, which gives you the bleeds, the perforates, and stuff like that. That would be my best guess.
I saw a lot of muskets with spear too, because they both scale off dexterity.
Spear is just overall a great weapon. and I like some of the things you're doing with it. The javelin, it would be hilarious to see somebody charging in with the great axe or the fire staff, and then just get hit in the face with a giant spear. And
Oh
knocked down
gosh,
the
it
guy.
feels so good to land that hit.
Yeah, I bet.
Even
it
against an
does.
NPC, you just shunk, and they just drop, and it's like what was that? You guys remember watching the movie Troy back in the day?
I never
With
saw
Brad
Yep.
Pitt. What, you never saw Troy? You
No,
gotta go watch
no,
it because it's
I-
amazing. But
Brad
in
Pitt
that,
with blonde
he-
hair, baby.
Oh, dude, Achilles. Oh, it was epic. But throwing the javelin in that had a very familiar like thunk to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it's just a
Yeah.
real solid pounding. Oh,
No, it looks
so
sick.
I might revisit that.
I didn't play spear. I actually tried spear a little bit. I tried the basic attacks with it, and I was not satisfied with it. I didn't like the little, no, it was a two. It was a
It's
two
pokey.
combo.
You do
Just
a lot
a
of
little
poke.
pokey thrust.
Right,
Poke,
and it
poke,
didn't
poke.
feel like I was
Yeah.
reaching very far. It felt a little slow and janky, and then but so I was like, I'm not gonna give spear a try during the beta, but I like the spear in theory. I like looking at their two trees. I like their abilities a lot, and so
Well, and that's what sold it for me was the abilities. It definitely wasn't the lighter heavy attacks.
Yeah.
And I want to make a quick note on that real quick, if you don't mind. Did you guys ever use heavy attack?
yeah,
I
like,
did not frequently enough though.
mostly
I don't-
against NPCs. It was not worth
Not-
it.
yeah, not
against
in
players.
PvP. Not unless you have them CC'd, because it's really easy to dodge out of
Yeah.
most of those heavy attacks.
If I got
Yeah,
a trap, if I got someone in my musket trap, then I would switch to rapier sometimes and try to get a heavy attack on them. But it didn't. Or if they weren't focusing me and they were CC'd somehow, then I would try. But otherwise, it wasn't worth it.
Yeah. I just was not using heavy attack at all. I mean, I was for bow and musket because it's aimed down the sights. But for the spear, for the hatchet, I rarely was using my heavy attack.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I will
Anyway,
say this. Speaking about the basic
yeah.
attacks for spear, at least they're being realistic, right? There's a lot of games that you'll have the spear,
Yes.
and you're doing these like wide sweeps with them as and that's not what the spear is designed for. It is a piercing weapon. It is a poke weapon. So I will give them the credit for that because it's definitely more realistic. It just didn't feel satisfying when I was doing it in the game.
Now, you want to make my day? You make that spear be able to be coupled with a shield, and allow me to have a shield and a spear,
Go
because
full
that's how a
Spartan build,
spear.
huh?
Well, that's how a spear was classically used.
Yeah.
Having a shield and a spear allowed you to defend yourself and have the distance and the range that you needed to get the kills. Oh, that would be a lot of fun. I might play around with this again. I'm going to ask you guys a question here in just a minute, saying, what do you still need to test in the new open beta? For me, I got to revisit the other weapons. I really got dug into spear and bow, and I really rode that train for a while, and I think I got sold on it because I enjoyed some of the abilities, that I stopped looking for good synergy options or something. I stopped like diversifying my playset because I wanted to hit. Gosh, I think I got really, really close. I think Big Papa, you actually did you unlock your Keystone ability with one of your weapons?
For both in the end.
For both. Yeah. I did not get both. So I think I was trying to hit that. So I didn't use any other weapons. This time, screw it. No, I'm grabbing all the weapons and I'm going to spend an hour or two with each of them, consistently playing and feeling them out and respecking and just trying to find that good sweet spot.
The first few levels for each weapon will get you all the abilities you need, and then you can respec
and
for free.
that's so well
it's
done.
Very nice.
That
and then
is
it
so well done.
drastically, gets difficult to level up that weapon, and that's why I focused on that. I was the same boat as you. I focused on just 2 weapons during the closed beta because I wanted to get to those ultimate keynote abilities at the end of the tree and try that out, and I ended up really liking the 2 weapons I chose, so I just stuck with it. But I agree, for the open beta, especially considering the fact that there's only 3 days of it, it's about trying out maybe a couple more weapons and deciding what I'm going to officially do come launch. Is it my turn at this point?
It's your turn.
Okay.
Make it happen.
So, yeah.
All right, so speaking of spear, I did go spear. Now I technically
Did you?
I did. I technically it's my secondary. Even though I have it as my first
Okay.
weapon in the
Yeah,
the
you're
build.
married to that musket, aren't you?
So that's a great question. Because so let me talk about the primary first. I went with Ice Gauntlet because I wanted to try. I didn't play any of the magical weapons at all, and I wanted to try one of those. And I love CC.
Wait.
I
You're doing
love crowd
Ice
control.
Gauntlet and Spear?
I went Ice Gauntlet and Spear. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
Keep
yeah,
going.
my theory was I'm gonna build the most territorial crowd control build as I can, and there were a lot of options too. So Warhammer's a good option for crowd control, but I ended up going Ice Gauntlet and Spear, and it's a and I get built kind of this territory. This is my area. And if you come in here, you're coming at your own risk, type thing, right? You brought up musket. This could have easily been Ice Gauntlet musket, honestly, and I'll explain why
Yeah.
later. But so I just went straight down the builder path, pretty much. I went for the ice pylon. I really want to try that out, see how effective it is. I remember playing against it maybe twice against an enemy with an ice pylon, and it didn't seem to do much. But that's because we were constantly running, and that's just a complaint I have about the PvP in general in New World. It's just it's a lot of running away,
A lot of cat and mouse.
a lot of cat and mouse. But if I can keep people, or if people are attacking me, I pop down an ice pylon, and then I start getting into my rhythm, right? So the ice pylon is there. I've spec'd into a few abilities that increase its overall health and how fast it shoots, I believe. And it increases its lifetime with with each successful hit that I get on the enemy. Things like that. Plus the ultimate in the builder tree centers around the ice pylon. So if you're not going ice pylon in the builder tree, it's worth it to go half and half. You're gonna want to go half in the Ice Tempest tree and then half in the builder, so you can get the Ice Tempest ultimate, which is much more general. So anyway, with the ultimate, it doubles the ice pylon's health and extends the frost radius that it creates around it, which gives me some bonuses and buffs, right? It gives me extra mana regen, it makes me faster, and I've got talents that also do that. So that's my area. I'm marking my area. And then I have Ice Shower, which is actually a really cool looking ability. It creates this like half ring of like ice that's like spinning around. People can pass through it, but if enemies pass through it, it slows them down and gives them frostbite, which roots them for 1 second, and it stops them from being able to sprint or dodge. Slows them by 50% too, so it's a big thing, and you can kind of control the arc of the shower. So it's picture like picture like a half circle around your character. And it's like a meter away from you. You put that out, and then you can play around that, which I love. So I can put it out and then play around it while enemies are trying to hit me, and it's hitting them, doing damage and slowing them down. I think it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it does damage to them too. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's just CC. I'm looking at it right now. Doesn't mention damage, but if you spec into it fully, it applies a rend to the target, reducing their defense by 10%. Anywho, the last thing I picked was Entombed, which is a really cool ability. It's like Ice Block,
right?
In World of Warcraft. But I just encase myself in ice for 10 seconds, and it has a good amount of health. So it takes a while for players to chip it down if they're trying to. But when you leave it, it'll do this AoE effect, and it does a pretty decent amount of damage, I was seeing. So essentially I can
really,
yeah. So it does a good AoE. And with this build, I might not go Entombed. It's possible that instead I would go finagle my talents and go for the Ice Storm in the other tree, because Ice Storm is that big circular storm you've seen. Everyone's seen it, that spins around and does damage over time. That one looks awesome as part for this kind of build too. So I want to play around. This is when I want to go first. Maybe I switch out. If I don't like Ice Pylon, I'll switch it out for the Storm and go deeper into the Ice Tempest tree. But I definitely want Ice Shower, and one of either Ice Pylon or Entombed. But it's very defensive, this is my area, CC oriented build. And the Spear helps with that. So when I go over to the Spear, I just put pretty much everything in Zoner.
Oh, wow, you sure did. Yeah, I'm looking at
Yeah.
your build right now.
There's one, I went with Precise Jabs in the Impaler Tree for some extra critical chance because that's kind of how I focus my attributes points that I spent. I'll go over that in a second. But yeah, no, I took Javelin for the same reasons you said. It's a great ability, and its first talent you can pick will knock down enemies, which is just so good.
Yeah.
And if its last talent, it increases the damage the further you throw it. So if you're trying
Yeah,
to finish
so you hit
someone
a hit
off,
from far away.
right?
Yeah.
Imagine someone getting away from you, and you're able to throw that spear. If you can connect it, it'll do extra damage the further they are from you, up to 100% more. So that's pretty good. The sweep is huge. You were explaining like you've never missed anyone. I was watching that, and it's a big sweep that also knocks down. So we're talking more CC here. And if I'm in a group, I mean, we knock them down. I do extra damage to them. My teammates are on them. It's game over. And finally, the Cyclone, which pushes them back. So it's a little CC. The only thing I would care about in the Impaler Tree really is the Vault Kick, which applies a stun. That looks really cool. If I were to replace anything, it would be Cyclone with Vault Kick. But and then my talents, I kind of just...
It's a fun ability to just execute.
Yeah, it looks great. And so...
It's good animation, yeah.
If I'm out of mana, if I'm low on mana, I switch to Spear. I'm zoning still in my, maybe still around my Pylon, right? So they're constantly taking damage from that. Kiting them around my ice, or my, what is it called? The Ice Shower. So that's kind of the idea. Just area control, keeping them off me. But like I said, I could switch out the Spear for Musket, and then I'd have a trap, and I could trap them, throw down my Storm that constantly does damage to them, and then throw a grenade at them, and then just have more CC, and then I can shoot them when they try to run away, which is the best thing about having ranges is in this game. Is it's like the only way you can kill someone who's trying to run away from you, pretty much. But yeah, no, that's my build. I still love Rapier, so I don't know if I'm gonna stop playing Rapier in the launch. This is what I'm gonna try out during the open beta and see how it goes.
That sounds like
I like it.
Fun. And I think it would pair well with my build if we're looking for area control in a war or something like that. You and me going in, man.
Oh yeah,
that'd be great, man. We'd just have total domination.
That would be that's a good point. Yeah, locking down an area. And let me just say, this is an example right now. What Ruko just said, this is an example of how people can come together in our podcast. Because when we first did our builds, we were at each other's necks. We made builds to counter each other. Remember that, Ruko?
oh, my original build's still gonna counter your original build, hardcore.
Wait, what? I don't know. We still never tested out because someone wimped out to go on a family vacation.
Out family. Okay, all right. We'll do it during the open beta for sure. Now.
Well, this is actually a pretty good segue, especially after Big Papa's build, to talk about our opinion of the day. And what we want to talk about is getting stunned or stunning someone in PvP. Now, in the alpha, New World had an ability called Stagger. And when you hit someone with a lot of different abilities, they would stagger. What this ended up creating was situations where when you were 2v1ing, or you were up against a few people, when they started hitting you with abilities, you were staggering so much that you couldn't escape it. Now, Grit, correct me if I'm wrong, but Grit is meant to be the ability that helps prevent staggering. So, for example, Big Papa, you took Sweep, and if you take the first talent in Sweep, it says Grit is now active during the attack. Yeah. Which means that you can't be knocked down, you can't be staggered while that attack is happening. And it's a good long animation, so that's fine. But it can be very difficult being in this situation. when you're stun locked, and that can feel very frustrating. World of Warcraft's approach to this was to create a necessary trinket. Like, you don't make a decision when you play PvP in World of Warcraft to have this specific trinket. You have to have this trinket, which is the Gladiator's Medallion, and what it does is it breaks you out of CC so that you can have some time where you're immune to CC, get your grips about you, and go back to the fight.
Yeah.
Does Stagger have a place in New World?
So my experience with Stagger and stun locking and things like that is, it's really fun if you're the person doing it, and it is complete misery if you are the recipient of it. That being said, like the ability to stun lock somebody in a game, I just don't. At least not for a long period of time. Just probably shouldn't exist. You brought up World of Warcraft and the trinket that gets you out of CC. I mean, that works on one CC. The other thing World of Warcraft does is they have what's called diminishing returns. So if you apply a stun and then you apply a second stun and a third stun, each of those stuns last less and less amount of time of their base value they were supposed to last, right? So if you stun somebody from 5 seconds and you try to do another 5-second stun on them, maybe it only lasts 3 seconds. And then if you do another one, it only lasts 1 second, so on and so forth, until they're immune, right? But honestly, even then, like in a situation like that, if you're stunned or chain CC'd for like a good 4 or 5 seconds, you're dead anyway, right? There's no amount of diminishing returns that's going to stop you from just being dead. So I think for the general player base, they don't enjoy being CC'd like that heavily. But I also got to understand that if you're getting CC that heavily, you're going up against a coordinated team, which should be rewarded, and you're probably out of position in a PvP combat, which, you know, you should also be a little bit punished for. Like, that's just kind of good design. But at the same time, I understand it's not fun. I don't like being chain CC'd. I mean, if you're in a PvP combat, you actually want to fight somebody, and a lot of times these CC abilities just seem like cheap ways to win combat, right? Now, it's a little bit different in an action combat scenario where you actually have to land the hit, right? In World of Warcraft, it's you just target the person, you press the button.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So I think New World has a bigger... There's more room for things like Stagger and Stun, but you need to be really careful about how long these stuns last and how many of these abilities you can reasonably chain together, especially with one person, right? I talked about the Warhammer. I mean, there's a couple of knockdown abilities and a stun ability, and if you tack on the heavy CC, the heavy armor that gives you extra time on CC, I could probably lock you up, assuming I hit you for like 4 or 5 seconds at a time. So I think what they've actually done a good job with is, okay, the Warhammer can do that, but it also doesn't do a ton of damage. At least from my experience, it hasn't been the most effective damaging weapon. So there's a really fine balance. I think having CC and a little bit of stun locking with coordination is a good thing, but when you get to the point where a player just can't move, it's just not fun. It's not really, it shouldn't even be that fun for the player doing it either, because there's no skill in that, right? Or there's not a lot of skill. There's probably some skill, but there's not a lot of skill in my opinion.
Let me talk about a little bit to that, because you do mention it shouldn't be fun. I did have an opportunity to play in the alpha, and you know what feels really good? When you are playing an action RPG and the target you hit staggers.
Yeah.
When you're hitting with weapons, that feels very much. It feels. I mean, it doesn't, but you get the sense of that tactile feedback of I just swung my sword and I connected with something, and there's a moment of stagger there.
Right.
That felt really good, especially against NPCs, right? When you're hitting them, or they were, for example, if they're about to hit you with an ability, but you can smash them real quick and get that stagger to go off, and then it kind of halts their ability, that feels good. It's like hitting that interrupt, right?
Yep.
So there's certainly an element of it there, but I agree with you that you want PvP combat to be fun, and I think most importantly, PvP combat is most fun when it is fluid. I think that the game, and especially New World as it is right now, without Stagger being so prevalent in it, is that the combat feels very fluid. It feels there's a lot of movement and dodging and ducking and backing off for a minute so I can chug a potion and then getting back into the fight with this 1v1. That feels really good. And I think that if that Stagger were to creep back into the game, it would feel frustrating, because I know, Big Pop, and I'm interested to hear your opinion, because you talked about the cat and mouse, how that was kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
But I think that provides a more fluid combat and a more interesting engagement than I stunned you first, and now I've locked you out.
Yeah. See, I don't think it was ever that bad, though. I went back and looked at some videos just to try to get a better idea of what it looked like, what Stagger looked like in New World. And yeah, every hit staggered. But if you timed it right, you could dodge out of it. And then grit was even more important then, because it countered staggers. So
That's
you
true.
use
That's
an ability that has grit, you stop them from stagger chaining you. So there were definitely ways out of it. I think, here's my opinion, is I think New World completely abandoned it too fast. I think that was the wrong decision. I think what they should have done was patch it or change it in a way to make it better. So it wasn't as so for example, I have a couple. Ruka came up with one compromise, right? Diminishing returns. If you keep poking them with the same light attack, eventually after a few attacks or after the first combo, you can't stagger them for for a little bit. Or heavy attack stagger, right? So maybe light attacks don't stagger, but heavy attack should. Especially in New World, we just talked about how often do we use the heavy attack. Now we would have a good reason to use the heavy attack when we could to stagger them, to keep them from running away, to keep them from getting away, to keep them from using their own abilities. That's another compromise. How about if you attack them from behind, they stagger? That would also solve the running away. If they're trying to run away and you get a hit on them from behind with a melee weapon, boom, you stagger them.
That.
And so they have that's forcing them to turn around and actually fight or to use abilities to get away. And then finally, another idea I had was light attacks on successful combos. So like if you finish your rapier chain, because the rapier shouldn't stagger in my opinion, right? Unless you're doing a heavy attack. But if you finish the light attack combo on them and you get that off, maybe that should also stagger. So there's a variety of ways they could have done it. I don't think they should have nixed stagger altogether, and I think it would have made it a better game. I would have loved if the NPCs staggered, because one thing I hated is like when I'm doing a combo on an NPC and they're doing their combo on me at the same time. It does not feel realistic. It feels and it's frustrating, because it's just like who can do the damage the fastest to kill. And so I try, as a rapier player, I was trying to be more systematic about how I attacked enemies. But in the end, since I couldn't stagger them and they couldn't stagger me, it came down to a couple hits hitting each other at the same time. And that's the same with PvP. You can hit each other at the same time, and it just doesn't feel realistic. So I am in the stagger camp. I don't think it should be what it used to be necessarily, and it full every attack hit staggers. But that's where I am. Oh, one more idea. What if hitting... Oh, and this is... Okay, on a side note, I'm not a fan of the dodging in the game, right, as it is right now, because it's too easy. I can dodge twice, and then I get my stamina back so quickly. And as from what I could tell, you can dodge as long as you have any stamina. There's not a threshold you have to get over, right? If you have one stamina, you can dodge, and then you have to wait for it to come back. It felt too easy for me to dodge, or for anyone to dodge. And that stamina came back so quickly. That contributes to the whole cat and mouse game that I'm not a huge fan of. I like some cat and mouse, but I like cat and mouse if it's your abilities that are giving you the ability to create distance, and not just dodging and running, run, and you can't catch up to them. I don't like that. So I thought it would be cool if maybe hits drain stamina or something. So if you're in the fight, I don't know. Those are just a couple ideas, but that's my opinion.
Great solutions.
Yeah, that's my opinion overall.
I have just a couple follow-ups. So I just want to clarify, like, my biggest concern with the stagger was the scenario you described with the rapier, right? Getting poked 8 times right with the rapier, and you're just constantly staggered, right? Because the attacks come out so quick. And maybe that's just from, flashbacks of playing Dark Souls where I'd miss an attack and suddenly 8 guys are all hitting me and I'm stun locked and I just die, right? That's the type of thing, like, it doesn't take a lot to land a melee hit, right? I don't think the regular light necessarily melee hits should have the stagger. I'm totally fine with a group of coordinated people going in and chain seeing somebody who's out of position or doesn't have their group with them. Right, that sounds good. So I really like your ideas, like put it on the heavy attack. I also think maybe the end of a combo type thing with the rapier might make a lot of sense too. But a lot of games also offer like the bigger, heavy, slower moving weapons have a little bit of stagger with them, right? Maybe not a lot. Some games do something like a poise type system, or it's almost like stamina, or just something where it's almost like a hidden stat value, and you can get hit, or each attack has, so many points of poise damage, and if you take too much poise damage, you get staggered, right? With the heavy weapons, taking more of that away versus the light attacks don't do very much. Something like that might be fine. I don't know. I worry that it's not fun to just be constantly crowd controlling.
But see, in a 1v1 scenario, let's just say you take it out of 1v1 scenario. Yeah. If you give the players options to break the stagger, right? Then that's great. So then it's all about the most dangerous thing in a PvP scenario should be the commitment you take when you press a button, right? In my opinion.
Yeah.
Because
I agree.
Because then it creates more tactical decisions you have to make. It makes the combat more based on skill, right? Rather than just who can mash the buttons the fastest. It's about when you press the button, right? Not how fast or how often, when you press the button. And one more little side note before Slacker says his thing. If you try to 1v3 people in an action-oriented game, you're going to get staggered. That's
sure.
Oh
yeah,
100%. I think we all agree on that, right? Like that should never be a complaint. And if that's one of the reasons why they complain is like, I can't PvP because groups are killing me. It's like, well, that group up or stay away from the groups,
Right.
Like, anyway, that's just part of the game.
It's more the concern, the 1v1. I don't want to go up against a rapier. No, I can't win because the second he light attacks me, I'm done. Right? I'm just infinitely chain stun or until I magically
I will
roll
say
out
this. The
or
rapier has
something.
a big weakness, and it is the reach. I can't tell you how many times I missed my auto attack or my basic attacks against an opponent just because of the spacing wasn't correct, or they were able to move slightly when I started.
Well, you
my
won't
attack.
have that issue with a spear.
No, you don't, and that's good. I think that's good design because then let's say the rapier does stagger on every attack, you have to get in there. Right? Most other weapons have range or a longer range on you. And so you have to be able to get in a position to stagger them like that. So anyway, that's just a little bit.
So I just wanted to step back here just real quick, and this is the last thing I've got for you today. But I totally agree with you, Big Papa. One of my least favorite, most hated comment that I hear is, you can't cancel animations in this game, and that sucks. Because I agree. When you hit that button, you've made that commitment. So right now we're playing a game called Tribes of Midgard, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun. You can't cancel your animation in it. Once you're using ability, you're committed to it.
Yeah.
And you have to decide when you're underneath this massive giant, and he's about to throw down an ability. Can I get off my ability in time, or do I need to back out and then come back in? I think that's a much better decision to make than I'm halfway through doing my ability, but now I've got a dodge roll out of it. I'm going to cancel this massive wind-up attack that I'm doing. Yeah. I hate canceling animations. I hate it because I don't feel like that feels very fluid. I don't feel like it's not realistic. Yeah, exactly. Yep. So that split second, I know some people really do enjoy the ability to have those split second moments and be able to make those split second decisions. I'm not. I like to have to commit and have that tactical question of, should I commit to this move right now? or do I need to wait until I've stunned them a little
the
bit and
decision
I
should
know
be
I
made
can land
before
it?
you press the button.
Yes.
Not.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
agree.
yeah.
No, I
So
agree. Having
the best.
forethought
Good.
in those situations is important. So, I don't like animation canceling, like you said. Some people like being able to split second, get out of that type of stuff. But I think it's just a different gameplay style. Instead of being able to have quick reactions, you need to have better knowledge of the situation and better planning of the situation, right?
Yeah. No, I will say that, it does feel good canceling an animation. Like, I like it. Like,
Sure,
when I'm doing it, I like it. When I'm good at it, I like it, because then you feel responsive. It feels responsive. It feels like, you made a good move. I don't know. It feels good. But yeah, I agree. I'd rather have something that requires more forethought. That I'd rather you have to strategize a little bit more than be able to cancel things.
I was going to have one last thing to add on to Big Papa's talk about the cat and mouse game, kind of with PvP. I think part of the problem is actually we haven't been able to unlock a lot of these end game end tier talents on the weapons. Because I know a lot of them do bring things like haste. Like I know specifically the Great Axe. When you're within like 15 meters of somebody, its ability is you gain like 30% haste towards them at all times. I mean, that's going to end a cat and mouse game pretty quick if you can approach them 30% faster.
Yeah.
Not to mention those high tiered weapons and gear have a lot of other attributes that change the game quite dramatically.
Yeah, they do.
So
yeah, they absolutely do. So I think
we haven't tested that yet.
We haven't tested that yet. I think I think the cat and mouse game will get significantly reduced once a lot of these abilities get unlocked. And you did mention kind of the stamina damage. Some of those weapons do have stamina damage, right?
Okay.
You can actually drain somebody's stamina. I don't know how useful it is, because like you talked about, once you're at empty stamina, it refills like that quick.
A dodge should also be a commitment. You know what I mean? But it doesn't feel like it is in this game. It feels like you can dodge twice real fast, and then you can dodge again relatively quickly. And that would really help the cat and mouse game if that was.
That's the light armor type thing, right? Yeah. I mean, if you get people in heavy armor, they're going to do this one slow fat roll and probably.
And I like that. Right? I will say I like that they did that in this game. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's good. I don't think a lot of people are going to slow fat roll. I'm probably one of the only few people who enjoys going the full heavy armor build and being this tank thing that slow rolls and stuff. People love the fast rolls mostly, but we'll see how it plays out. There's a lot of stuff to test still.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, that is our show for today. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to be a part of the conversation, you can follow us at Aeternum_radio on Twitter, or you can join our Discord, which will be in this podcast's description. You're also welcome to send us a mail. You can send that over to eternumradiopodcast@gmail.com. And if we get really interesting conversations, we will bring them up in our show in the future. If you want to play with us, you can do so. If you want to join us as we play in the next open beta, or even as we launch into New World, you can do so by joining us again through that Discord to find our in-game company. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I think that the next open beta, I'm going to try. I got a couple of buddies who are still hesitant to play, and you better believe it, I'm going to get them to play in this open beta. I'm looking forward to it. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it'll be great.
So from all of us here at Aeternum Radio, I have been your host, Slacker, and goodbye from me and from Big Papa.
See you later.
And Ruko.
Bye, everyone.
You guys have a great week. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.